Hello, can you hear me? Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Chef Shenarri Freeman, and I'm here to share a little bit about soul food with you today. Cool. So I'm sure you're all wondering, why did I pick this topic? There's many different things that you can talk about as a chef, but I wanted to pick something that was near and dear to my heart. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm really excited to just show you different aspects of soul food, and let's get right into it. All right, so what is soul food? There's many different definitions to soul food, but when I think about soul food, I think directly about Dr. Jessica B. Harris, who has done so much amazing work within this field, just debunking a lot of different myths and stereotypes. So I really wanted to kind of share a lens on what her definition of soul food is. Soul food has been defined as a traditional African American food of the South, as it has been served in Black homes and restaurants all throughout this country. It is a combination of nostalgia for pride in the food of those who come before. In the 1960s, as the history of African American began to be rewritten with pride instead of shame, that land that had previously accompanied the experience of disenfranchisement and enslavement, soul food was as much an affirmation as a diet. Eating neck bones, chitlins, which I'm very familiar with, turnip greens, and fried chicken became a political statement for many. And this is by Dr. Jessica B. Harris from We Shall Not Be Moved, Cornbread Nation 7. So now that we know what soul food is and a pretty good definition of it, let's kind of look at a history of it, if you will. So in 1619, the first enslaved African Americans were brought to this country, to Jamestown, Virginia. And through 1619 through 1865, it's known as the slave food period. So you're seeing a lot of things like molasses, you're seeing a lot of corn, you're seeing a lot of rice, and honestly, it's just food of survival. You're not really seeing that much choice or diversity because we didn't have that back then. That was until about 1863 for a portion of the country, which we know is when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. However, it wasn't until 1865 until the rest of the country in Texas was notified about the Emancipation Proclamation. So from 1865 until present day, we have something called Southern Cooking Period. During this time, we have the Reconstructive era, where people are reconstructing their lives. They're starting to get hired all throughout the South and all throughout the country, so you're seeing a lot of Black chefs on the rise. This is also a period where Creole and Cajun food is starting to get a definition and a highlight, even though it's been around for many, many years. And you'll see that a lot throughout the food of the diaspora. It's been around for a long time, however, it wasn't recognized. You also are starting to see a lot of different chefs in the White House. So our food was literally feeding the nation. And that's something that I take a lot of pride in. All right, moving right along, we have the 1890s through the 1970s. So this is a down-home cooking period, also known as the Great Migration. So you're starting to see a lot of people move to different parts of the country. So now we're going north, we're going to the Midwest, we're going to California. Even when you visit today, when you visit like the Midwest today, you'll see a lot of great soul food in Chicago, and you're probably wondering, what is soul food doing in Chicago? And it's because of that Great Migration period. So a lot of people are taking the foods that they grew up with, the recipes that were passed down from their ancestors, and they're cooking it in different regions of the US, but also the world. So you'll start to see more of a global impact with what soul food has done for the country. Oops. Nope. All right. And finally, we have the 1950s to the present, which is the soul food period. So the term soul food actually wasn't coined until around the 1960s. And this is the civil rights era. So we're starting to see people take a lot of pride in the food that they were cooking. You're starting to see people get a bit more creative and experiment a lot with soul food. So it wasn't just eating for survival. You were eating for excitement and eating with pride. You're also seeing the soul food movement actually fund the civil rights movement. So the boycotts were actually funded through pie sales and bake sales. So you'll see a lot of that during that period of time. And you can find a little bit more of this information from the great Adrian Miller, who is a food historian who studies a lot about Southern cooking, African American cuisine, and the impact that it has on the entire world and our food systems here in the US. All right, leading the conversation. So we've already talked about Dr. Jessica B. Harris, who I actually had the privilege of working with on High on the Hog Season 2, which is on Netflix. I was very honored and grateful to be on the second season of that, sitting at a table and speaking with people that have been working in this field for oh so long. So it was really great to understand her perspective and for her to understand my perspective as well as a younger chef coming into this industry. Adrian Miller, we just spoke about him as well. We also have Edna Lewis on here, who is actually from Virginia. She is a person and a chef that was known for really putting soul food on the map, especially in New York, with her restaurant in Manhattan. And we also have Leah Chase on here, who is known as the Queen of Creole, coming out of New Orleans. Who is Miss Green? So that's me. I wanted to share just a little bit of background of what I've been doing with cooking and who I am as a chef and how it relates to, this topic that we're on. So as I mentioned before, I am from Richmond, Virginia, and I grew up with a really big family. My mom is one of 9. I have 22 first cousins, so food was always around, but not just any food, it was always soul food. So back to the chitlins, we always had chitlins. Virginia is also known for oysters, so we eat that every Christmas. And I really just fell in love with it, but I didn't think anything of it until I became a chef. And I decided to take a vegan, plant-based approach because I wanted to kind of shed a light on that. I think a lot of times when people think about soul food, it's just fried, people see it as unhealthy a lot of times, but through my platform and through my cooking, I'm able to share a different light of that. So at Cadence, at my restaurant in New York, it is a vegan soul food restaurant. People seem to like it a lot. We've been highly awarded and recognized by the press and people that come by there. So I think taking these small steps and initiatives as a chef and really being passionate and just showcasing a different light through your food journey is really important. So I'll continue doing that. And I also have a second restaurant now in Los Angeles, California, where we focus on vegan West African inspired food, which leads me to my next point, if it clicks. All right, so following the ingredients. So we mentioned 4 different eras of soul food and how you can kind of trace back to these different ingredients. But through my research, I found that it all traces back to West Africa. So I always tell people, if you follow the ingredients, you'll find out where the food is coming from, what stories were told through our food, and how it relates to not just the US, but the entire world. Something like plantains, we see a lot in Caribbean cooking, we see it in West African cooking, but we also see it in places like Spain and Mexico, and it really it's such a versatile ingredient. This dish right here is my okra chard salad, which I have at my West African restaurant in LA, UBUNTU. Other dishes you can follow and ingredients: okra, rice, plantains, greens, cowpeas, corn. These things have been around for a really long time, and you can find them throughout the entire world. So they have such a great global impact. Where are we now? So when we think about soul food, I think a lot of times people think you can only find it in southern states, but that's not true. We have it in New York at Cadence, my restaurant. We also have it at Chicago with the restaurant Virtue, which is Chef Eric Williams, who is a James Beard awarded chef. So just imagine a time where our food wasn't recognized at all and we were just in the back of the kitchens, and now we're highly awarded for it. So we've come such a long way with this cuisine. We have Croaker Spot in Virginia, The Great Savannah by Chef Mashama Bailey, who's a great inspiration to a lot of us in the culinary world. Melba's in Harlem, Sweet Georgia Brown in Dallas, and I would also like to note, I do a lot of traveling to West Africa now, and I'm starting to see soul food restaurants in Africa, which is pretty exciting. Awesome. So this brings me to my last point, preserving culture, history, recipes, and technique. So how do we keep soul food relevant? How do we keep it, how do we keep telling these stories? How do we keep it, I guess the answer is to keep spreading knowledge. We have to keep cooking. Yes, I think we also need to explore some of these original recipes, but I think it's also important to put your own culinary spin to it. So yes, okra, a lot of times is used as a thickener for soups and stews, but now I'm using it in salads. And I do like a tempura, I do like a fried okra. That's just like one of the many examples, but all of these recipes, techniques, and history is passed down over time, and I think it's important to take pride in that and to continue cooking. Thank you.